Hello, everyone. Just wanted to say before I get into the compilation, thank you all so much for 1 full year on this channel. I'm still planning to put out the regular video tomorrow as usual, but I wanted to just compile all of the Primarch shorts I made and put them all into one succinct long-form video for anybody who missed any of them. Sort of as a celebration of the channel making it as far as it has so far. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you tomorrow. And now we get to the Lion of the Emperor himself, Lionel Johnson. Lionel Johnson is maybe my personal favorite case of a glow-up between the Horus Heresy version of a character and the current day version of the character. Back in the Horus Heresy, he was a truly terrible father. Ever honor-bound, never showing really any emotion, never really considering the opinions of his legion. However, when he returned in 40k, he became maybe the best example the setting has for a father among the Primarchs, actively going out and trying to find his traitorous sons in order to redeem them and bring them back into the fold. His whole story, especially the story of the later stuff, has been my absolute favorite redemption arc of any character in 40k that I really know of. And of course, it's really funny that he can just take a walk through the woods and appear behind you, anime style. Ah yes, none other than the Venetian himself, Fulgrim. Fulgrim is a very good example of how to do the story that they attempted with Horus and Sanguinius correctly. And given the strength of a brotherly bond that the Venetian and the Gorgon had, it really just elevates their entire story and the tragedy that ultimately comes with the betrayal that Fulgrim enacts onto Ferrus Manus. Talking about Fulgrim himself, though, he's a very great rendition of a pretty boy, always full of himself type character, obsessed with perfection in everybody, including himself, and that begins to eat away at him. And the way they go about that, ultimately, even though it is another rendition of I got possessed by some funky looking sword, is a lot better in my opinion than the way they go about it with Horus. I give the Venetian 5 perfectly crafted hammers out of 8. Wait, it's Phoenician? Good old Peter Turbo is maybe the most competent of the traitor Primarchs. And yet he's also the most emotionally pathetic of the Primarchs. That's really why we love him. His entire character arc revolves around the fact that he is upset that Dad did not pick him to make the big funny castle, and he has held that over Rogel Dorn and his sons forever. It is really, really funny. It makes for a great dynamic between the Imperial Fists and the Iron Warriors, and all around is a fantastic thing. I give him 4 great siege artillery emplacements out of 6. Make memes about them until they cry, and then make memes about them crying. This so often said about the Great Khan by so many different people, and for very good reason. The Khan is a very funny Primarch. There isn't really much on his character. He's kind of like the stereotypical quiet, contemplative, Eastern sort of master guy. But what there is all just really, really good. It's absolutely fantastic, in fact. I give him 50 well-trained step horses out of 50. Absolutely fantastic marks. Ah, the Lord of the Icy Wolves himself, Leman Russ. Leman Russ is my absolute second favorite Primarch, sometimes boxes for first, because I just absolutely adore a calculated beast of a man that pretends to be more of a stupid monster than he is. Even though, with bad writing, he does sort of end up being a stupid monster sometimes. He is only put in second place by Dorn for me because his showmanship of being the Emperor's executioner is absolutely top tier. The showmanship of how he was brought into the Imperial fold is top tier. And just who doesn't love a good Norse Viking aesthetic? 10 full flagons of ale out of 10. Hey guys, why is the Carpenter like the coolest guy around here? Rogel Dorn is my absolute favorite Primarch of all of them. The stalwart master of the Imperial Fists and the creator of the Grand Imperial Palace. He backs up what he is. Completely monotonous, but completely badass whenever he is allowed to shine. He makes for just an absolutely incredible leader and a great person to look up to. Papa chose him to build the palace for a very, very good reason. I give him a full brick wall out of a full brick wall. The Night Lords exemplify to me cowards. I do not like the Night Lords at all, which is why I really like their Primarch, Conrad Kurz, baby, yeah! Conrad Kurz and I agree on what the Night Lords are, a bunch of little trash crybabies who can't buck up and face anything correctly. He has the same sort of charm as a Big Jack Horner. He is a villain because he wants to be right. He will always act on whatever makes his visions right, no matter who it hurts. He is really just the goblin of the Primarchs, and it is so enjoyable to watch. It is fantastic. I give this one 5 flaying knives out of 6. Oh, look at me, I'm a pretty boy. Oh, I died for my father. Ooh. Yeah, I don't like Sanguinius at all. He's boring. Not enough was written about him when he was alive, and his arc is just not finished. He died too early to Horus, and I hope they bring him back with like things like the Sanguinor in 40k, but I don't really have much hope for that. But, I mean, he looks cool. A Primarch Angel really isn't a bad idea, but it just needed a little bit more past the Horus Heresy. I genuinely think if they were going to kill a Primarch, they probably should have killed, I don't know, Ferrus Manus here, because they were going to kill him anyway, so, but yeah, Sanguinius gets a 1 feather out of a full wing, so, yeah. Ferrus Manus doesn't really have a lot on him, but what there is absolutely, positively fantastic. His relationship with Fulgrim is one of the most interesting stories I've personally seen so far in Warhammer, and I absolutely cannot wait to eventually get to it during my eventual read-through of the entire Horus Heresy series, which probably won't happen for like a few years, let's be honest. As boring as the Iron Hands can sometimes be, Ferrus Manus's vision for what they eventually could be was an absolutely fantastic one, and ultimately showed how human of a Primarch he actually was. It was very impressive, and I always will love him for it. When it comes to tragedies in Warhammer, Angron absolutely has to be in the conversation. Grew up in a gladiatorial pit, forced to murder his own father figure, and then when he led a revolution on his planet in order to break the stranglehold the aristocrats had over all of the people, the Emperor showed up, teleported him up to the ship, and told him essentially just to deal with it. Knowing all of this, it really is no wonder why Angron turned traitor, and I used to dislike Angron a lot more than I do now, until I forget who it was, but some other Warhammer YouTuber, explained what's going on with him is that his arc is already over, and all of his story really happened in the Horus Heresy. So, I would probably have to get through all of those books in order to get a real accurate opinion of Angron, but so far from everything I've heard, he's an absolute 10 out of 10. Robute Gilliman! I really like saying that so much. Robute Gilliman is the vanilla ice cream of all of the Primarchs, except this is vanilla bean ice cream, so it's the good shit. Gilliman is just a really great all-rounder. He was going to be a hero, but Monarchia. And also just generally 40k, you can't really be a hero in 40k, but the arc of how he got from that to the depressed monster that he is now is really interesting to watch, and it's absolutely fantastic. I give it 5 correctly done entire projects out of 5. Alright, now we got Big Stinky himself, Mortarion. Leader of the Death Guard and chosen by Papa Nurgle himself, Mortarion is a bit of an interesting case. He sort of has a little bit of the petulance of Perturabo, and a similar playing out of his story as Angron, except without the justification. As what made him angry at the Emperor was that he stole his kill, like some sort of Call of Duty kid. However, despite all of this, Mortarion is one of my favorite Primarchs, especially with his later stuff from the Plague Wars series with him and Guilliman. He's just an absolutely enjoyable time because he's really one of like 2 people under Nurgle who are not happy to be there. I give him 10 proper plagues out of 10. Magnus the Red is a very interesting case. At first, he is a very sympathetic character, and in all honesty, he really is. But then you dig a little bit deeper into his backstory, and you find a man who is so deluded by his own hype that it is such an interesting story to watch unfold as it dooms his sons, dooms himself, and ultimately turns somebody traitor who really did not need to be traitor. This ultimately makes me like Magnus a lot more than I think a lot of people really like Magnus. He's a really fun character because he's such a train wreck to watch unfold. He's absolutely incredible. I give him 1 completed spellbook out of 1 completed spellbook. 18 days later, we come to this. Horus Lupercal. Horus is a very interesting character. Much like the Emperor, he is absolutely positively made and broken by the skill of the writer currently taking the task of writing their character. Sometimes it ends up with a very good, very tragic, lied to fallen son that makes the story he is in extremely compelling. At other times, he is the failed villain, the villain that really is not all that compelling because he doesn't end up being all that intimidating. I personally believe that the start of Horus's journey towards the beginning of the Horus Heresy books, he is at his absolute best. And by the Siege of Terra books, he has become much more of a less intimidating, less good villain, because ultimately he is displayed as being weak. Abaddon is completely right about what he says about Horus within those books, and I get that that is the point. However, I need to see a little bit more before I really decide what I think of Horus. I've never done this before, but expect an update short after I really dig into Horus's character towards the end of the Horus Heresy. Lorgar Aurelian. In my mind, the only real representation of Chaos Undivided among any of the Primarchs. Lorgar is what Horus wishes he could be. A real villain with a tragic backstory, a real reason for turning on the Emperor, and also he's just a lot cooler than Horus could ever even hope to be. In my mind, he is the only representation of Chaos Undivided among the Primarchs, even though there's technically like 5, 6 of them, and as a result, comes out on top as the best of them. I truly cannot wait until the time that the Urizen returns to the 42nd millennium. Until then, I give him 5 Chaos Gods out of 5. Remember, Monarchia. I absolutely adore Vulcan. I mean, did anyone really expect anything different? Vulcan is easily one of the sweetest Primarchs. He is one of the most human Primarchs. He is not only a fantastic father to his sons, but a fantastic leader to all of humanity. If, we're ignoring that whole War of the Beast series, which everybody should and everybody always should, his dichotomy with everybody's favorite gremlin, Conrad Kurz, is absolutely fantastic. And let's not forget that it's also a Hammer moment. 10 dancing salamanders out of 10. Corvus Corax is a pretty interesting case, and not necessarily in a bad way, but also not necessarily in a good way. He's very similar to Ferrus Manus in that there's not much written about him, but what we do get of him is decent, but not good. The Raven Guard have an absolutely incredibly cool aesthetic, and honestly so does he, but an aesthetic really doesn't carry a Primarch. Plus the whole edgy over-the-topness kind of gets a little bit too over-the-top at times. Let's not forget him saying nevermore before going to sulk in his tower for a few thousand years. But I think he's still a solid 6 bad poems out of 10. Not bad, but not really good either. Alpharius and Omegon. Yes, I'm going to do these two as one short because they really aren't a different character. Having said that, while the Alpha Legion really struggles to find its own identity, Alpharius, or technically Omegon, really picks up the slack when it comes to much needed character for the Legion. His book, detailing his training under Malcador and journey to become the best spy that he can be, is incredibly interesting and absolutely very well done. Omegon, or technically Alpharius, however, yeah, he really just exists to die and really doesn't do much else. So overall, I would say I'd give both of these two a 7 out of 10, because Alpharius is just that strong. Subscribe for more long-form videos every Wednesday.